If you're reading anything right now, where did you find it? The average rating of this book is 3.5, but I gave it 5 stars. And here's why. I do think that will absolutely shatter your heart, destroy you, and like set you backwards in healing. I think it's so beautiful to share some love of some more unknown authors and unknown reads. This one just resonated, and it is so unknown. I used to get all my recommendations from TikTok, but I've really shifted that. We all know that feeling of walking into a bookstore or opening any online bookshop and seeing the same books over and over again. Everything we're recommended online is pretty much on the feature table, and on one hand, that's wonderful because we're creating a community and you get to fangirl and fanboy and just be super excited and come together over your love of books. I will absolutely be reading the new ACOTAR books when they come out later this year and early next year. However, I have read hundreds of books every year over the past few years, and I realized there are some absolute gems with shockingly little recognition. And so today I went through my Goodreads read list and I filtered by the lowest rated. Some of these were completely shocking. They had 2,000 ratings. That is absolutely nothing. I want to help that author get more recognition and visibility because I loved that book. So, hi, hello, welcome back to Laura's Library. Today I'm sharing some criminally underrated and genuinely not popular books that I loved and want to share with you. Now, this spans a wild range of genres. I'm talking fiction, romance, historical fiction, a holiday book, there's memoir, there's nonfiction, there's a mixed bag, literary fiction as well. And there are a few random stories of how I found out about these books. Either I was gifted them, recommended by a friend who didn't see it online, or some of the best ones were me simply perusing the shelves of a bookstore and picking up something that intrigued me, and then the rest was history. I will say, going through and picking these books, I realized I've read quite a lot of unpopular books. Not all of them have been life-changing, but I'm glad that there's a bit of that range, because as much as it's so fun to be current and get the newest releases and get to talk about it with my friends and online, I think it's so beautiful to share some love of some more unknown authors and unknown reads. So let's get right into it. We're going to start from the most popular to the least popular, so one you probably have never heard of because it had 2,000 ratings on Goodreads. The first book I recommend is A Gentle Reminder by Bianca Sparancino. And I don't have the physical copy because, of course, I've lent it out to a friend since I loved it so much. And this book has 22,500 ratings. In the grand scheme of things, that is really not a lot of ratings. Think of how many millions other books have. To put into perspective, I think every ACOTAR books has at least 1 million. I could be making that up. But typically you'll see a known book have 100,000 or more Goodreads ratings. And still that doesn't encapsulate how popular it is, because that's just the people who have a Goodreads account and decided to go leave a rating. A Gentle Reminder is nonfiction. It's a short collection of different poems or essays and little writings about self-love and loss and a healing journey. I truly believe timing aligned really, really well when I picked this book up, and that's why it especially resonated. I was going through a lot of personal growth and changes, and it hit me. It hit me in all the feels, and I thought her writing was so gorgeous. It wasn't too modern mainstream. It didn't completely remind me of any other quote I would see online. It felt a little more personal, and I connected with the writing. It got a little bit repetitive, I remember, like halfway or near the end, but I still got so much out of it and highly recommend. You will fly through it. I think especially if you're dealing with change or are in your 20s or 30s or at any point in life, honestly, we all go through so much and we just don't talk about it. This book can maybe bring you a little bit of peace and validate your ever-changing emotions and also help put things into perspective. So I did binge it in one sitting, and that is the first one. Also, the average Goodreads rating is 4.24 stars. So out of those 22,000 people, they quite enjoyed this book. The second most popular is The Memory Keeper of Kiev by Erin Litikin, and this one has 20,000 ratings, and The average rating is 4.43 stars. That is incredibly booked for Goodreads, who I find has a lot of controversial, or not controversial, but just very opinionated readers on the platform, which is really funny. Like reading Goodreads reviews of books, hilarious, especially if you've read that book and you have context. But this book is highly rated and I completely get it. I think I gave it 5 stars. It gutted me. I bought this in an airport bookstore, and there's going to be a trend here because that has happened again with some of these books. And it's so interesting. I wonder how they curate little airport bookstores, because I was reading this wanting to sob on the plane. It's a historical fiction and it was dual timeline, partially set right when the conflict was starting, so in like 1930s, and then it connected to later once the child, our main character, like she's grown up and lived this life and she's recalling what happened back then and her resilience and just keeping this memory and honoring everyone who sacrificed part of themselves or their livelihood to help the future generation of Ukraine. And I truly can't speak highly enough of it. It completely touched me, and it was just a historical event I knew really nothing about. And even picking up the book, I don't think I had properly read most of this synopsis. I just kind of liked the dual timeline. A granddaughter finds her grandmother's journal or letters, and then she's transported back, and it gives her this sense of ancestry, like strength and connection to her home. And I somewhat related because if you didn't know, my parents are Romanian. Well, I'm Romanian, and it's been a bit of a journey to feel like connected to that part of me because I live somewhere completely different. I'm in North America, and I don't know, this one just resonated, and it is so unknown. But 4.43 stars, like the writing was really, really good. This actually prompts me to probably look up this author and see if they've written anything else because I'd probably enjoy it. This next book I also have back home in my childhood home library, but it's How to Pronounce Knife. And this was everywhere in Canada. I don't know about North America as a whole, like in the States and then everywhere else in the world, but it won a prize in 2020, and I did pick it up. I think it was on sale. They were really pushing this book, and I binged it in one train ride. It is simply a collection of short stories about immigrants in Canada, actually. So it's set in Canada as well, so it makes sense why they were pushing it so much. But it's really just slice of life, heartwarming stories about family, about change, about adapting, about a new home, about finding community. It's not plot driven. It's really different collections of moments from life. And it was really easy to fly through. It's not too big either, but the writing was really beautiful. And after every single short story, even though I didn't have that many pages to connect with a character, it was still executed perfectly, and I recommend. I think if you are looking for a change up, if you typically read like romance and fantasy a lot, this was just a sweet, really well written book to mix up what I typically read. And it has 21,000 ratings on Goodreads. The average review is 3.83, but that's like pretty standard for Goodreads. Next, I'm really excited to talk about Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. Now, this book, destroyed me. Honestly, warning, I would not read this if you've just gone through a breakup. I do think that will absolutely shatter your heart, destroy you, and like set you backwards in healing. However, if you're near the end of the healing journey, or even if you're in a relationship, or just, you know what, you could read this out of a breakup. You can read this whenever you want. I wouldn't, though, because this book by Hazel Hayes, thank you, Kim, for recommending and destroying my life with it. It is essentially dual timeline. At the very start, we have found out a couple has broken up. And you're thinking, okay, why do I care? Like, I've just met both of you. And then we go back to the start of when they meet and they fall in love. But then we're getting flashbacks of that while in present day, they're healing and dealing with the breakup. And the wild, beautifully executed part of this book is that Hazel Hayes balances the hurt and heartache of going through a breakup so well with the butterflies and excitement and joy of falling in love. Like, I felt so many emotions while reading this because I was giddy and kicking my feet and happy for them. But then I would have a reality check of, wait, but they broke up. And it kind of sent me down a spiral of, oh my goodness, like even if it feels that good and loving and wonderful, it could just end any day. But that's kind of the point. Like, not every love story is meant to be a lifetime story. It teaches you something about yourself, and you do get something out of every relationship, whether it's a lesson, a new hobby, a newfound appreciation for something in life. You can find the good in something, and just because it's over doesn't mean it was all bad. And it's really less of a traditional romance. I guess I would call it a romance fiction, something like that. Just, it was incredible, and it deserves more recognition. So it has 20,098 ratings, and the average rating is 3.8 stars, which I understand. Listen, I get it. Like, if this completely destroyed you and shattered your heart, maybe out of anger you go 2 stars. I didn't. I think I gave it 5. It was a really well-written book also. Just the author is really talented. However, I did read another Hazel Hayes book, which I did not enjoy nearly as much. I can't find it on my shelf right now, but that one was not as good. The next book is We Met in December by Rosie Curtis, another one I don't have with me on my shelves, but I read this a few years ago in December, and I gave it 4 stars, and I kind of remember it still, even though it was just a silly Christmas romance, but it only has 19,200 ratings on Goodreads and a 3.35 star rating, which is not fantastic. But essentially, our main character moves into a shared flat in London, and I just love London-based books like everyone does. It's so fun to read. I wish I lived there. Maybe not actually, but, you know, literally, in a literary sense, it'd be fun. Literary. It's a cozy, slow burn. Lots of time goes by. There's a bit of, like, controversy on the efficacy of their relationship, because it's one of those, think One Day, you know, the one that was a movie and then a TV show with Anne Hathaway, or Love, Rosie, where just we have a really long timeline ahead of us and life kind of keeps pulling them apart, or as circumstances do, but then they finally obviously get together because it's a romance holiday book. And I liked it. It's really underrated. No, like, for a holiday romance, I guess, though, they typically have not that many ratings, but if you're gonna pick up a book this Christmas or holiday season, that would be a good one. Oh my goodness, this book. I will never stop talking about it, even though I've barely mentioned it on this channel. The Boys Club by Erica Katz. I will say I was really happy for her when I saw that it has 17,223 ratings. That's not a huge amount based off other books in the market, but given that I simply picked this up on a shelf at an Indigo, not knowing anything about it, I went outside to the Starbucks next to the Indigo, I started reading, and then I binged this book in one day. And I remember it had just come out because I went to put my rating in the next day, and there may have been like 1,000 ratings. So I'm happy for her that it's popped off since then. I really wonder when it came out, but not enough to actually check. This is essentially a fiction book where we have our main character joining a very prestigious law firm in New York. And not only that, she kind of gets into the elite boys club when she joins one of the, I think it's the M&A, mergers and acquisitions team, which is seen as like the higher ups. They go out and party with their clients and like they bring in the most money, but make very unethical choices about their lives and the business side of things. And we see her fall into that trap a little bit, and then how she deals with that and like the repercussions on her personal life and her work life and what she chooses to move forward with. Something I loved, I got so into it that I was looking into the author after reading it, and she actually worked at a law firm and said that she pulled from some real life examples of like how she felt in those situations. And it was just so easy to fly through. The plot was really, really interesting. There was so much backstabbing between other women and then the men and how icky it felt. And I liked it because at the end of the day, it's obviously sending a message of like women in a male-dominated industry, but it wasn't preachy. Like, it was just done really well. I think anyone could read it, get so much out of it, and truly enjoy it because it felt super fast-paced and there were a lot of, like, dramatic little events throughout, but we're still following her career growth and her journey. And, I mean, she had just finished her schooling, so it just felt like a really good time to read it in my 20s, and I super resonated. And then the average rating is 3.91 stars, which is not bad. Again, for Goodreads, that's nearly a 4-star, so I recommend. Another one that shattered my heart is The Yellowbird Sings by Jennifer Rosner, and this has 16,200 ratings and a 4.07 average rating. So again, very highly rated, and I understand why. This is set in Poland during World War II, and honestly, it's just a beautiful relationship between a daughter and her mother, and they're bonded by music. I remember that they're separated at one point. I remember she studies music. She gets really lucky. The daughter, the school she's sent away to, she finds someone who wants to protect her, and she continues practicing music, and eventually they're reconnected. And it was just such a heart gripping, on the edge of your seat, what is going to end up happening. The resilience of the mother is wild, and again, it's a little bit of dual timeline, like present day and then looking back on what happened. I find that's really effective in historical fiction, honestly. And again, this was just such a sweet airport purchase, random walked into an airport bookstore and wanted something to read. I don't know why I gravitate towards these, but they always hit, and it's nice that I can binge them on the flight, so I'm getting the full effect and range of emotions and interest all in one sitting. Don't judge me for the next one, but when I tell you, I vividly remember details from this book, scenes where outside of the palace, they are talking to each other, but it is essentially a Hallmark movie in a book. A Princess for Christmas by Jenny Holiday. I don't have the physical copy. I read this on my Kindle. I might be on Kindle Unlimited, so you can check that. But this has 9,009 ratings as of August 12th, 2026. And the average rating is 3.56 stars. I gave it 5. Here's why. This is a holiday romance between a New York City cab driver and a secret princess of basically Genovia. Think of the Princess Diaries. It's basically same, tiny little country, but they're really rich and powerful. It's called Eldovia. Oh wait, is that a real place? Anyway, it's the Princess of Eldovia and a New York City cab driver, and obviously very hard to make those two lives connect. Her family's gonna object, his family's just living it up in probably Brooklyn or something. I can't remember that detail, but they do end up forming such a beautiful, cute relationship. I really liked it. I flew through it. I remember them visiting Eldovia together and him trying to go in on their traditions, and even she went to New York and got to know his siblings, and it was just really sweet. It was really sweet. I could see it playing out as a movie, but I probably would never want Hallmark to adapt it because I just know how cringe and cheesy it would be, whereas the book was actually good. I'm gonna end it off with this book, which kind of in a similar vein of honestly, Out of Love, and then the first one I talked about, not The Life That's Waiting, but A Gentle Reminder. This is Notes on Heartbreak by Annie Lord, and I don't know how you would describe it. Once again, it's kind of a love story told in reverse because we're getting them breaking up to when they fell in love, and then it's dual timeline. But the intimacy and how vulnerable this book felt made it as if I was reading a diary entry every page. It was so personal and yet funny. It was so relatable, and it dived into everything that happens after a breakup. The grief, the guilt, the memories popping up, the trying to move on, then realizing you're not ready, the snapping at your friends, the not quite being present, the trying to overcome that, starting new hobbies, checking up on your ex but not wanting them to know, and all of these human reactions to losing someone in your life who you know still exists. So it's a very different form of grief. It was really, really raw. And I appreciated that deeply. I read this at a random time in my life. It wasn't necessarily relatable at that specific moment when I read it, but it made me think back on situations that were sort of similar, or even something I could relate to, that a friend had been through. And I remember one very specific scene where the main character saying to her best friend, she's not gonna see him, she's not gonna go talk to him, they know they'll be at the same party together, and then the best friend goes oh, but you're doing your makeup really nice, aren't you? She's like, yeah, of course. And then she goes, and you're gonna go talk to him, aren't you? She's like, yeah, of course. And it was just funny because we do that, we lie to ourselves, and then we end up doing that anyway. You have to read it to understand. I really, really, really liked it. And if this helps you, Dolly Alderton, is one of the quotes like endorsing this book on the front, and I love Dolly Alderton. I think this was another recommendation from Sabina, or just something super random I found in a bookstore or online. I truly can't remember for this one how I got to know it, but it has 11,000 ratings and the Goodreads review is 4.1 stars, which is incredibly high and very deserved. Honestly, I have even more I could keep recommending that are very unknown, unpopular, super low ratings. The one that is 2,000 is The Life That's Waiting by Brianna Wiest, and I do think I lent that out to Jasmine, my best friend, so I don't have it with me, but if you've heard of 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think, it's somewhat in a similar vein. It's just encouraging, motivational. It was less of a here are 10 productivity tricks and tips to change your life and just like genuinely hard-hitting, more personal, motivational messages. This is where I leave you. I hope you got some fun, fantastic new recommendations out of this that I bet you have not seen on TikTok. Now you've seen them on BookTube, but not somewhere else, hopefully. And let me know if you've read any of these books, especially the lower rated ones we just talked about. I'm super curious. If you're reading anything right now, where did you find it? I find most of my recommendations and like my TBR, which is behind me that I'm trying to get through, has pretty much been series I've heard of. Like I want to get through some more Cassandra Clare. There are some more popular romances on there, whether they're hockey or like cowboy or something. I used to get all my recommendations from TikTok, but I've really shifted that. Now I don't have it anymore, but I still do get a lot from BookTube, especially creators that I know I have similar tastes in, or if they give the synopsis and I'm like, yes, that sounds like right up my alley. So I'd say a lot is still from social media, but in a healthier way. And then I haven't really done like browsing the bookstore and just buying a random book in a while. I guess I did that actually with Quicksilver, which is a recent fantasy book I read just up here, but turns out it is popular. I just didn't know, and like I'd seen the spine in a bookstore when I looked at the fantasy section and it stood out to me. It just so happened that it is popular, so that's kind of funny how it turned out. Anyway, this is where I leave you. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way till the end, please make sure to like and subscribe and comment below. It really helps the channel, and then I can continue making more videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!